You're standing on the first tee. It's 38 degrees. Your breath hangs in the air. You crush a drive that feels perfect off the face, and it lands 20 yards short of where that same swing lands in July. I chased that missing 20 yards for 2 winters, and what I found is that the ball in your hand is quietly betraying you the second the temperature drops, and there are exactly 5 balls that refuse to do it. This got buried under decades of marketing that trained us to buy 1 ball for every season. But the trail runs back to a patent from 1898 and a rule the governing body of golf quietly wrote to stop people from cheating the cold. I first noticed it on a frozen morning in Michigan, watching an old man outdrive men half his age with a ball that cost him $1. Stay with me, because by the end you'll know his secret, and you already own everything you need to use it this weekend. Let me start where I started, with the thing nobody could explain to me. I asked 3 teaching pros why my ball flies shorter in the cold. All 3 said the same thing. Cold air is denser. And that's true. Cold air is heavier air, and heavier air means more drag on the ball in flight. But something about that answer never sat right with me, because the numbers didn't add up. Here's what I mean. When engineers actually measured the effect of dense cold air on a golf ball in flight, the difference between a warm summer day and a freezing winter morning came out to only about 3 or 4 yards on a full drive. 3 or 4 yards, that's it. But I was losing 15, 20, sometimes 25 yards. So where were the other 20 yards going? That question is what turned me from a frustrated golfer into a man digging through old engineering papers at midnight. Because if the air only steals a few yards, then something else was stealing the rest. Something inside the ball itself. And once I understood what it was, I couldn't believe nobody had told me. The answer is that a golf ball is not a solid object. It's a spring, a tightly wound rubber spring, and like every spring made of rubber, it gets stiff when it gets cold. When you strike a warm ball, it compresses against the club face, stores that energy for a fraction of a millisecond, and then snaps back and launches. That snapback is where your distance comes from. But a cold ball doesn't snap. It sits there, stiff and lifeless, and swallows your energy instead of returning it. Engineers have a name for this. They call it the coefficient of restitution. It's just a fancy way of measuring how much of your energy the ball gives back versus how much it eats. And a cold golf ball eats a lot. Testing has shown that a golf ball chilled to around 40 degrees loses a meaningful chunk of its rebound compared to the same ball at 70 degrees. We're not talking about the air anymore. We're talking about the rubber going dead in your pocket before you even swing. That was the first clue. The problem wasn't the sky, the problem was the ball. But that only raised a bigger question. If the ball goes dead in the cold, then why do some balls go deader than others? Because I'd started noticing that not every ball lost the same distance. Some seemed almost immune. And to understand why, I had to go back further than I ever expected. All the way back to a bathtub in 1898. Let me tell you about the man who accidentally invented the modern golf ball. His name was Coburn Haskell, and he was not a scientist. He was a businessman waiting for a friend at a rubber plant in Akron, Ohio. To pass the time, he started winding a long rubber thread into a ball, tighter and tighter, until it was a dense little sphere. When he dropped it, it bounced nearly to the ceiling. That was 1898. Haskell took that idea, wrapped a wound rubber core in a hard cover, and patented it. And overnight, the golf ball stopped being a solid lump of dried tree sap, which is what they'd been using before, and became a spring, a ball that stored energy and gave it back. Golfers who switched were suddenly hitting the ball much farther with the exact same swing. The wound rubber ball ruled the game for the next 100 years. Now here's why that dusty old story matters to you on a cold morning. Because the moment the golf ball became a rubber spring, it also became a slave to temperature. Rubber and temperature are locked together. Warm rubber is lively, cold rubber is dead. Haskell gave us distance, but he also handed us the exact weakness that steals it back every winter. And for a long time, golfers just accepted it. Then, decades later, someone figured out how to measure it. They invented a number called compression. Compression is just a rating of how hard or soft a ball feels when it's struck, how much it squishes. A high compression ball is firm, and it needs a lot of speed and force to make it flex. A low compression ball is soft, and it flexes easily, even with a gentle hit. For most of the last century, the best players played the firmest, highest compression balls they could find. The pros loved them because with their blazing swing speed, they could compress that firm ball fully and control it. And the rest of us were taught to want what the pros played. So we bought firm balls too. The magazines pushed them, the shops stocked them. Firm meant serious, firm meant good. But here is the trap nobody explained. When the temperature drops, a golf ball effectively gets firmer all on its own because the cold stiffens the rubber. So if you take a ball that's already firm and high compression and then you chill it, you've now got a ball so stiff that your winter swing, which is already shorter and slower because you're bundled up in 3 layers, simply cannot flex it. You're hitting a rock. All your energy bounces off and goes nowhere. That was the second clue clicking into place. It wasn't just that the ball got cold, it was that the wrong ball got catastrophically cold. The firm, expensive, tour-level ball that everybody told you to buy is the single worst ball you can play in freezing weather. And the soft, cheap ball that serious golfers look down on for decades? In the cold, it quietly becomes the best ball on the course. I sat with that for a while, because it went against everything I'd been told. But the physics didn't care about my ego. A softer, lower compression ball flexes more easily, which means even when the cold stiffens it, your slower winter swing can still compress it enough to get that spring back. The soft ball forgives the cold. The firm ball punishes it. So the real question became simple, and it's the question that probably brought you here. Which specific balls are soft enough to survive the cold, close enough to your budget to actually buy a dozen of, and good enough that they won't wreck your short game? I tested and I dug, and I found 5 that keep showing up over and over in the testing data and in the frozen rounds of people who'd figured this out long before I did. Let me hand them to you one at a time. The first ball is the Wilson Duo Soft. And this one matters because it holds a record most golfers have never heard of. For years, the Wilson Duo carried one of the lowest compression ratings of any ball on the market, hovering down around the mid-30s on a scale where firm tour balls sit up near the high 80s and 90s. Think about what that means in the cold. When the temperature drops and stiffens every ball on the course, this one starts so soft that even a chilled, bundled-up winter swing can still flex it and get energy back. It's the ball that fights the cold before the cold ever touches it. Wilson has been making golf balls since the early 1900s, longer than almost anyone, and this is the one that quietly became a cold weather secret. It won't spin like a tour ball around the greens, but on a February morning when your hands are half frozen, it gives you backyards that a firm ball simply steals. But softness alone isn't the whole answer, therefore the second ball adds something the first one gives up. The second ball is the Callaway Super Soft, and the reason it belongs here is that Callaway figured out how to make a ball extremely soft and low compression without turning it into a marshmallow that dies on your wedges. The Super Soft has been one of the best-selling balls in the entire country for years, and most people buy it because it feels good and it's affordable. They have no idea they're holding one of the best cold weather balls ever made. Its low compression means your slower, colder swing can still load it up like a spring, and its cover is built to give you enough grab and control that your approach shots don't skid off the back of every green. When I switched to this ball on a raw, windy day last November, I got back most of the distance I thought winter had stolen from me for good. It was the first time I felt like the trail I was following actually led somewhere. Therefore, once I knew soft was the answer, I wanted to know if there was a soft ball that still felt like a premium ball. That led me to the third. The third ball is the Srixon Soft Feel. Srixon is a Japanese company that obsesses over the chemistry of the rubber core more than almost anyone in the business. The Soft Feel uses a core that's engineered to stay reactive across a wide range of conditions, and it's low compression enough to keep flexing when the mercury drops. What makes this one special is the balance. It's soft enough to beat the cold, but it has a cover that gives you real control on and around the green, so you're not sacrificing your short game to save your driver. Srixon also builds a step up called the Q-Star, and if you want a little more control with that same cold-friendly softness, that's the one to look at. For a lot of the players I talked to who'd quietly solved the winter distance problem, a Srixon was in their bag. But then I ran into a name I honestly wasn't expecting to see on a cold weather list, and it made me stop and pay attention. The fourth ball is the Titleist True Feel. Now, Titleist is famous for the Pro V1, the firm, high-compression tour ball that half the golf world worships. And that ball, as good as it is in the summer, is exactly the kind of firm ball that goes dead as a doornail in the cold. But Titleist also makes the True Feel, which is their softest ball, and it's a completely different animal. It's built with low compression specifically so that slower swing speeds can compress it fully. That's the same quality that makes it thrive in the cold. What I love about this one is that it lets a Titleist loyalist keep the name they trust while actually getting a ball that suits the winter. If you've been playing a Pro V through December and wondering why your game fell apart, this is the swap that fixes it, from the same company, sitting on the same shelf. That single habit, which cost you absolutely nothing, gives you back more yards than most people gain from a brand new driver. If any of this is clicking for you the way it clicked for me, I want to mention that I put the full system together in a short digital book. It's called First Wins, and it's part of a series that includes Sharp Habits and the full system. Everything in these pages is built around the same idea you're seeing here, that practical, forgotten knowledge beats expensive equipment every single time. You can find the link in the description below. Now, back to the question that finally cracked this whole thing wide open. Therefore, with 4 softballs in hand, I wanted one more that solved a different winter problem entirely, and the 5th ball does exactly that. The 5th ball is the Bridgestone E12 Contact, and its softer cousin, the E6. Bridgestone is one of the largest rubber companies on the planet, which means they understand rubber and temperature better than almost any golf brand alive. Their soft models are low compression, which already puts them in the cold weather club, but they add something clever. Their covers are designed to grab the club face for a fraction longer at impact, and in the cold, when everything is slick and your contact is shaky, that extra grab helps you hold your line and keep your ball flight stable in the winter wind. It's a soft ball that also fights the crosswind, and on an exposed winter course, that's worth its weight in gold. So there they are, 5 balls that survive the cold when the firm, expensive ones quit on you. But I want to stop you before you rush off to buy a dozen, because if that's all you take from this, you're only getting half of what I found. Because knowing which ball to buy is nothing compared to knowing what people used to do with the ball once they had it. And that's where this stops being a shopping list and starts being the mystery I actually came here to solve. Now, I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now. You're thinking this all sounds fine for somebody with money to burn on a fresh dozen balls and a heated cart and a fancy launch monitor. You're thinking your situation is different, that you play a scrappy public course, that you're not about to reinvent your whole bag over a few yards. I thought the same thing. So let me stop and talk directly to you, because what I'm about to show you costs you nothing, and it's the part the old man on that frozen Michigan morning understood that I didn't. You do not need to buy anything to use most of what I found. Here's the truth I stumbled onto that changed the way I play every cold round. It's not just the type of ball that matters, it's the temperature of the ball at the exact moment you strike it. Remember, the rubber inside goes dead when it's cold and comes alive when it's warm. That means a warm ball flies farther than a cold ball, even if it's the identical ball on the identical swing. And you control that temperature completely, for free, with things you already own. The simplest version is this. Do not leave your golf balls in the garage or the trunk of your car overnight in the winter. If you do, they start the round already chilled to the bone, stiff and dead, and no swing on earth will wake them up in time. Instead, keep them inside your warm house the night before. Better yet, the morning of your round, put 2 or 3 balls in your pants pocket, the pocket closest to your body, and let your own body heat keep them warm between shots. A ball riding against your leg stays dramatically livelier than one sitting in a cold cart cup holder. And here's the real trick, the one that separates people who know from people who don't. You rotate them. You play one ball, and while you're playing it, a second warm ball is riding in your pocket. On the next hole, or the moment the ball in play has been out in the cold too long, you swap. The cold one goes back in the warm pocket to recover, and the warm one comes out to play. You're always teeing off with a ball that's near body temperature instead of near freezing. I tested this myself on the same hole, same club, same swing, back to back, a ball straight out of my cold cart versus a ball I'd kept warm against my body. The warm ball flew noticeably farther and rolled out better every single time. It stopped being a theory the moment I saw it with my own eyes. So no, this is not for people with more money than you. This is the opposite. This is the thrifty man's edge, the free advantage hiding in plain sight, and it's exactly the kind of thing that used to be common knowledge before we were all convinced the only answer was to spend more. But that raised the question that finally cracked this whole thing wide open. Because if warming the ball works this well, and it's this simple, then why doesn't everybody do it? Why isn't it printed on the box? Why did I have to dig for 2 winters to find something a man in 1930 already seemed to know? And the answer, when I found it, was the most surprising clue on the entire trail. Here's where the pieces snap together for me, and I need you to follow this closely because it explains everything. While I was digging through the rules of golf, trying to understand why the warm ball trick wasn't shouted from the rooftops, I found it. Buried in the official rules of golf is a specific rule, and today it lives under Rule 4.2 that says a player is not allowed to deliberately warm a ball during a round using any artificial device like a hand warmer or a heater in order to change how it performs. Read that again. The people who govern this game wrote a specific rule to stop golfers from heating their balls mid-round. You do not write a rule to ban something unless people are doing it and unless it works. That rule is the fingerprint. It's the proof that golfers figured out generations ago that a warm ball flies farther, and they were doing it so effectively that the authorities had to step in and outlaw the artificial version of it. But look carefully at what the rule actually forbids. It bans warming the ball with a device during the round. It says nothing about starting your round with a warm ball. It says nothing about your own body heat keeping a ball warm in your pocket. That is completely legal. The rule accidentally confirms the exact loophole that makes the free trick work. And that sent me looking for how far back this knowledge really went, because a rule like that doesn't appear out of nowhere. It appears after decades of people quietly doing the thing. When I looked at how winter golfers operated in the early part of the 20th century, back when the wound rubber Haskell ball ruled and everyone understood that rubber goes stiff in the cold, keeping a spare ball warm was just something canny players did. It wasn't a secret then, it was ordinary. A cold-weather golfer kept a ball near his body the same way he kept his hands warm because he understood the ball was a rubber spring and a cold spring is a dead spring. So what happened? Why did something that ordinary become something I had to excavate like buried treasure? This is the part that made me a little angry, and now we're far enough down the trail that I'll say it plainly. Somewhere along the way, the goal stopped being to help you play better with what you had and started being to sell you a new solution every single season. It became easier and far more profitable to sell you a special premium ball, a heated glove, a hand warmer, an expensive gadget for every problem, than to simply tell you the free truth. Keep your regular softball warm against your own body and rotate 2 of them, and you've solved most of the cold weather distance problem for nothing. The knowledge didn't disappear because it stopped working. It disappeared because free doesn't sell. The old winter golfers knew it. The rule makers confirmed it by banning the cheating version of it. And the rest of us were slowly, quietly steered away from the simple answer and toward the cash register, one season at a time, until a habit that used to be common sense had to be dug back up by some guy watching an old man on a frozen morning. Wonder how in the world he was hitting it so far. That old man in Michigan, the one who started all this for me, I finally understood what he was doing. He wasn't stronger than the younger players. He wasn't swinging faster. He was playing a soft, low-compression ball, the kind the serious guys turned their noses up at, and he was keeping a spare one warm in his pocket and swapping them every couple of holes. That was it. That was the whole magic trick. A dollar ball and body heat, and a piece of knowledge that used to be ordinary. He was out driving men half his age with something you can start doing this weekend without spending a dime. So let me put the whole answer in your hands, the way I wish someone had handed it to me 2 winters ago. First, put down the firm, high-compression tour ball for the winter, because the cold turns it into a stone your bundled-up swing can't flex. Play a soft, low-compression ball instead, one of those 5, the Wilson Duo Soft, the Callaway Super Soft, the Srixon Soft Feel, the Titleist True Feel, or the Bridgestone Soft models. Second, and this is the free part that matters even more, keep your golf balls warm inside your house the night before, carry 2 or 3 in the pocket against your body, and rotate them through the round so you're always striking a ball that's near body temperature instead of near freezing. Do those 2 things together, and the cold stops stealing your game. I went looking for 20 missing yards, and what I found underneath them was a whole forgotten way of thinking. The idea that you don't have to buy your way out of every problem the weather hands you, that the guy who understands his equipment beats the guy who just keeps upgrading it, that a rubber ball is a spring hates the cold, and your own body is the cheapest heater you'll ever own. If you've ever stood on a freezing tee and watched a perfect swing come up short and felt like the game itself was cheating you, then this was taken from you the same way it was taken from me. You're the kind of person who'd rather know how something works than be sold a fix for it, and that instinct is exactly right. Hold on to it. Now I want to hear from you. Here's my question, and I really do want your answer. Have you ever left your golf balls in a cold trunk or garage overnight before a winter round without realizing you were starting with a dead ball? Be honest, because I did it for years. Tell me in the comments. And if you've got your own cold weather trick, drop it down there too, because this channel is people like us trading back the knowledge that got buried, and I read every single one. If you found something here you didn't know before, subscribe and stand with the rest of us who are digging this practical, forgotten knowledge back out of the ground where it was quietly left to rot. Because the next thing I uncovered is even stranger. There's a specific reason the color of your ball can cost you strokes in winter light, and an old rule about which color the eye actually tracks best against a gray sky, and once you see it, you'll never buy a white winter ball the same way again. That one's coming next. Don't leave that yard on the table. I'll see you there. I'll leave it there for now, but I've saved the part that matters most just for you. Inside the Old Ways circle, we pick up right where I stopped. In there, you can ask me your own question, and a real person, me, answers you myself. And you won't be alone. Thousands of Old Ways folks like you are already inside. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen. Cancel anytime.